he asked for a proposal, and I said, nope, not going to do it. You're already sitting on probably 3 or 4 of them. This is who I am. This is what I bring to the table. And I just kind of went through my laundry list of strengths. I told him areas that I was weak as well. And I said, I'd love to hear back from you and your partner. If not, totally understand, appreciate your time. And I hung up the phone. I hung up and I was like, what did I just do? But within I think it was about 2 hours, they called back and they said, we want you to represent us. And I was like,
I want to introduce tonight's guest because they know exactly what it means to overcome obstacles. And there are obstacles in this business. When you're building a business, there are obstacles. And ultimately overcome those obstacles to build something incredible. So please help me welcome our special guest, Elissa Stone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I really appreciate it.
So Elissa, she's a Houston-based real estate agent and investor. She's experienced in single-family, multifamily, self-storage deals, and has a track record of turning challenges into massive success. Did I miss anything there?
I don't know. It depends on how people define success. Everybody, defines it in different ways, right?
Yeah. No, and that's very true. Because I mean, if you're Grant Cardone, he's got one level of success, and there's plenty of folks out here that they just want to get a couple rental properties and build wealth, and they've got a good job. So yeah, there's definitely different levels of success. But for anyone new to you who they've never met you before, just give us like the 60-second origin story.
Sure.
Where did you get started? Like, where were you before real estate, and how did you transition to that to what you do today?
Absolutely. A very good overview. I started my first real estate LLC in 2018. The whole idea behind starting my first real estate LLC was to do single family redevelopment, AKA flipping, rehabbing. And I always had the intention to go multifamily investing. I knew that that was the end goal of mine, but I needed to make some money to get started. So there were a lot of very, very difficult times early on. Along the way, I obtained my realtor's license because I saw something in the market, a niche of portfolio deals being sold to specific investors. So fast forward to where I'm at today, focus on portfolio deals with my realtor's license. I'm an owner and operator of multifamily and storage units. And I just recently, as of probably next week when I close, am coming out of retirement for single family redevelopment because I ran across a great deal and I couldn't pass it up, and I fell in love with the sellers. And so I'm going to do another rehab on the single family side.
You find it hard to say no to a good deal, it seems like.
Yeah, couple of things. So yes, on the emotional side, absolutely fell in love with the sellers. It's 4 sisters who they lost their mom and their dad not long ago. I was just going to go ahead and flip it, wholesale it, use my realtor's license. But I fell in love with them. There's a great relationship there. Yes, there's money on the table. I'm helping solve problems for them. And I miss some of the design elements that I used to do. There was something intriguing and fun about it. So I'm like, why not? Let's do it.
It is fun. That was one of Jamie's, the best moments about the process was that before and after. Because you knew what it looked like before. And it's that transition of turning something that is outdated into something beautiful for someone to own and call home.
Yes. And the thing about me is I've done so many single family rehabs, and every single one of them I wanted to move in after. I know you're not supposed to do that, but that was me, every single one. I actually put my home on the market at one point, hoping that would sell first before the rehab.
Oh my. So I've made that mistake one time. But all right. So you built this brand called Phoenix Factor. Like, what is that? What is that name? Like, how'd you come up with that name, and how did that come to be?
So my latest and greatest, I have multiple entities and multiple businesses. And the most recent one is the Phoenix Factor Group. So that's more on the realty side. It's everything from representing buyers and sellers on individual homes on the retail side, as well as investments, and really focusing on portfolio deals. The premise behind this company, everybody I'm sure is familiar with the Phoenix and rising from the ashes above. So as I've gone through life, as most people, we all go through trials and tribulations, and things pop up and we have to overcome them. And that's been my life story, one thing after another. And I just always find myself getting back up and having that positive attitude. And that was the premise behind this company, that no matter what happens in life, we all want to go somewhere. We want to have these goals that we achieve. We want to support family. It's different for everyone, but that's the premise behind this company. And my mom, who the company is dedicated to because her name is Phoenix, that's really where it came from and it stemmed from, because I watch her get up every single day early on, and I've followed in her footsteps and kind of carried on that strength from both her and my dad at one point.
Love it, love it. So, I mean, everyone goes through setbacks. I've dealt with them, and ultimately, it's how you deal with them. So, you've talked about setbacks, like both personal and business. Like, was there a moment where you felt like you just hit the wall? And then, what was that belief? Like, if you had that moment, what was that belief that helped you break through that barrier?
Sure. Well, for a couple months now, and do I have everybody's permission to be very authentic and share and be honest and real? Because I don't sugarcoat things. Do I have everybody's permission? Raise your hand.
Everybody say
Yeah.
hi.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
Because we're all in a room full of people who we all go through things, we share, we grow, we come out better on the other end. That's the hope, right? So I'm going to be very authentic. So, Chris, what you don't know is that I've been kind of low key for the past couple of months. There's been a lot of trials and tribulations that have gone on. I thought my story early on, I had kind of been through it, overcome it. And most of us who have gone to a professional counselor or know anything about behavioral health is that there's 5 things that you can really go through in life that if you're going through one of them at one time, it's a lot. You're overwhelmed. There's everything from death, there's a relationship ending, there's health problems, there's moving, and it's a career change. All at one point in time, recently, why I've been, little under the gun, I was going through 4 of those. And really on the health side, which was a huge, huge scare. And so my motto for the company, although I started it before all this, and, I've been through things and I've overcome trials and tribulations, and I'll share more about my early experiences. It continues to happen, and it's going to continue to happen for all of us. That's life, right? It's not going to change. And that's what I realized. And it's all about persevering and overcoming and getting back up each and every single day and doing whatever it takes to drive forward and be that person that keeps moving to the next step, and accomplishing your goals, whether that's family, whether that's financial, whether that's career, anything that's important to you and how you define success. That's where I've been. And
yeah, so and a lot of people, you watch Rocky and you see the Rocky cut scene and it's like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's motivational. But in real life, that Rocky cut scene is 3 months, 6 months, 6 years.
Sure.
It can be a lot. And some people feel like I just hit a wall. But it's that mindset that takes to break through that, because like you said before, it's who you have to become to achieve, to actually break through it and achieve the goals that you really, really want to achieve. Like that's the real treasure.
100%. If you look at my Facebook right now, I actually have that video up. And so in the very recent past, there were trials and tribulations. And for the first time ever in my entire life, I've always been very positive, figure it out, get up, just, keep on going. But for the first time ever, I started questioning, do I have what it takes? Am I going to be able to get back up? Because I'm tired. I am drained, and all these multiple things are going on at one point in time. Is it ever going to stop? No, it's not. And you have to do work, and you have to sit at home, and you have to reach out to people that you love, and you have to understand what you need to do to drive forward to be successful in the areas that you want. And you can only rely on yourself. Maybe you have loved ones. That's amazing. You can rely on them as well. But the point is, we all have a story. We all go through something, and we all have those successes that we want to accomplish. And it's mindset and sharing ideas and helping each other drive each other.
So when you were going through those challenges, and whether it was before or more recently, like what was that aha moment that really changed your approach? What was it? Because you mentioned you can lean on, I mean, if you're fortunate, you can lean on people, or maybe just an opportunity, showed up. Or was it something else that just made you think like, all right, I can get past this?
I self-reflect a lot. I continue, whenever I face challenges in life, I think back to defining moments, from a young girl, and I'll share one. I remember when I was in elementary school, I was always very athletically inclined, everything from, running track, basketball, cheerleading, drill team. I did it all. And I don't know if you guys have had this when you were in elementary school, but we had what was called play day. And so it's like all the grades would get together and you would compete. And I knew my athletic ability as far as running. So I went to the PE teacher when it was play day. All the parents were coming to watch. And I said, I'd really love to race against the guys. And the point of that is because I wanted some competition. And the PE teacher knew my athletic ability. She said, absolutely. Well, when we're lining up and we're getting ready, all the parents, they don't know who I am. They're whispering. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, she's going to lose. What is she doing? And it really started getting in my head. And I started second guessing myself. And I was like, what am I doing? Why did I bring this upon myself? Well, number one, I wanted the competition. I wanted the adrenaline rush. But now I'm doubting myself. And I had that moment where I sat there and I was a young girl. And I said, drown it out. Drown it out. It doesn't matter what anybody else is saying around you. It doesn't matter whether it comes true. You know who you are. You know what you want, and you're going to drive this forward. And so I did. It was like everything kind of faded away. All of the parents' comments and the snickering and, oh, she's going to lose. What is she doing? And I knew who I was in my heart and I knew what I wanted. And I actually won and I beat all the boys. So my point is to that story is I reflect back to those moments. And that's what drives me when you're having a hard time, when you're doubting yourself, when you don't know how you're going to move forward. What is it that drove you in the past? What are those moments? And that was one of them. There was another one when I was 15 years old, living on my own in my own apartment. And I always tap back into that mindset. I turn to books. I'm very self-aware. So I can look at, a room like this, and there are so many talented and knowledgeable people in here that are so strong in areas that I'm completely weak. And so it's like, okay, let's go to this person. How can I help them? How can they help me? How do we educate each other? And so it's very clear on who potential coaches are, who, like-minded individuals are, and how you can come together and be stronger together.
So you said something that made me remember. So Layla Hermosi had said something. I'll paraphrase for the audience, but basically it's like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter your feelings. It's the work. It's the work. So if you can drown it out, the goal you have, and at the end of the day, regardless of how you feel, if you put in the work, you're going to get closer to the goal. And it does take effort, though, to rewire the brain to get in that space where you can ignore everything else.
And it's not uncommon to continue to have to rewire when you have setbacks and you have those moments. Take a couple of days to reset, tap back into that mind, set in that strength from the past, whatever it is for you. I rewire all the time. But at the end of the day, guess what? I'm always going to get back up. Doesn't matter what comes at me. Doesn't matter what happens. I will always get back up.
Everyone's like that. The strongest folks you see out there, they're like that. Now, they probably have conditioned themselves a little bit better. Even David Goggins, the dude's 50 years old. He just ran 240 miles. It took him like 36 hours, and I don't think he slept. Like, that's pretty insane, no matter what shape you're in. But even he talks about, he gets up some morning and he looks at his shoes and he's like, I don't want to do this. And he like stares at them for 30 minutes, convincing himself that no, you need to get out there and you need to put in the work. And so the strongest among you, like everyone goes through that. Everyone has to do that. Yeah. So you specialize in representing investors a little bit differently than a lot of real estate agents. You represent investors on portfolio deals, and you actually had a year where you sold 175 homes in 1 year.
It was 175 in portfolio deals, and that was in addition to kind of the one-offs, the retail, and then other investment properties.
Oh, so it very well was probably over 200 that year.
Yeah.
All right. So what did you start doing differently right before you got into looking at portfolio deals and working with investors like that?
Well, I'll tell you how it came about. It was a fluke thing. And I'll share one other story getting started in single family rehab because it was very difficult for me. It's all about the education. And then at one point in time, I have 2 rehabs going on. And I mentioned this at one of your other events speaking that, I'm looking my kids in the eyes, and I was in a very, very tough, uncomfortable situation where I had 6 digits of credit card debt. I had 2 rehabs going on, and I had $2.56 in my checking account. And I'm looking at my kids in the eyes. I can't even get a tank of gas. And I'm like, what am I going to do at this point? And I did end up selling a ring from a previous marriage, and I made it to the next day, thank goodness. But I never wanted to be back in those moments. But I took risks because I knew that's the only way that I was going to get ahead. Now, I don't recommend that for everybody. Everybody has a different risk tolerance. That was where I was at, and that's what was a good fit for me. And along that journey in selling those rehabs, I got my realtor's license because in my head, that's more money in my pocket, right? I mean, no disrespect, but I could probably negotiate a little bit better because I'm a little bit more passionate about my projects. And so as I was doing this and just networking and getting out there and meeting other like-minded individuals, I saw this niche in the market and I started to run across different investors who have acquired a portfolio of, several single family rentals. And for example, one of them, he had a package of 16 and he wanted to sell them. And, I had no experience. I'd never even trained as an agent or a realtor with anybody. But I knew I wanted that package of 16 and I wanted it to be exclusive to me. And so we ended up doing a conference call with him and his business partner. And he's going through kind of the check mark. What do you bring to the table? Why should I choose you? And I sat there and I'm like, I'm not going to tell him everything that every other realtor that he's talking to is going to tell him. Like, I know who I am. I know what I bring to the table, and either you like it or you don't. And so he asked for a proposal. And I said, nope, not going to do it. You're already sitting on probably 3 or 4 of them. This is who I am. This is what I bring to the table. And I just kind of went through my laundry list of strengths. I told him areas that I was weak as well. And I said, I'd love to hear back from you and your partner. If not, totally understand, appreciate your time. And I hung up the phone. I hung up and I was like, what did I just do? But within I think it was about 2 hours, they called back and they said, we want you to represent us. And I was like, what do I do now? Okay, I'm getting the exclusive. I've never sold a portfolio deal. And ended up, it's almost like throwing spaghetti to a wall. Sometimes I feel like my life is throwing spaghetti to a wall to see what sticks, and I just keep driving forward. And I ended up closing on that portfolio deal of 16. So this leads to mindset. Well, if I can close a portfolio of 16, why can't I close bigger portfolios? Well, how do you market for that? How do you meet people like that? How do you get in front? Well, I don't know. Let's do a Facebook post. Let's do this. Let's just put the word out there. And then all of a sudden, deals started coming in. And one of them, he was actually my hard money lender on the single family rehab side. And he caught word that I was doing these portfolio deals. He sent me a lead that he screenshotted on Facebook for a package of 91 homes. He goes, I don't know who this is. I don't know his contact information, but here you go. Well, I'm on the hunt. I don't know who he is, but I'm going to figure out who he is. How do I get his phone number? How do I get a meeting with him? How do I get in front of him? And ended up getting a conference call with him. Never met the individual face to face. He was actually in a different state. Ended up selling a package of 91 single family homes. Again, had no clue what I was doing, but it was mindset. Well, if I can do the 16, I can do 68, I can do 91. And that's kind of what transpired into me going into this niche. And I feel honored and just blessed because I get calls here and there like, hey, here's a package here, here's a package here. I just put the exclusive on a portfolio of 29 in Corpus Christi, all rental homes. And so I feel privileged and it's a blessing and I'm so appreciative.
So what do you think it was on that with that first landlord and with that first portfolio? So they've obviously talked to other agents.
Oh yeah.
They talked to you. Now, we don't know what those other agents, what their experience was. You did not have that experience, but you did approach it in your unique way. What do you think it was about you and what you said where they would be comfortable moving forward? Because, I mean, it's a big investment.
Sure. Yeah, huge investment. If I were sitting in their shoes, I would want to go with somebody more experienced or an agent who had, a certain number of production. I hate to speculate because I cannot speak for them. But in my intuitive nature, what I feel that what it was is him and his partner were driving who they were going to choose. We want this. We want you to do, an analysis. We want the proposal. And that's great. So all the different agents did that. And I was like, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going to do what everybody else does to give you very similar numbers. I'm going to show you what my strengths are and why you should choose me and what I bring to the table that's going to be different from traditional agents. And that's what I did. And it was a huge gamble. And like I said, I even hung up the phone. I was like, what did I just do? But I had to be me at the end of the day. And I'm just appreciative that I did get that opportunity. And then I'm even more appreciative that I was able to close and deliver because that's huge too if you can't deliver.
Yeah. I tell real estate agents this all the time is like the sellers and buyers they're talking to, they hear the same thing because the agents go through the same courses. They go through the same boot camps, the ferries and, all the other ones. I don't know. I'm not a real estate agent, but I hear them. I hear the same conversations. They call me. It's the same thing. And what I've talked to when I've coached investor agents in our community, I was like, don't do that. Like, approach it differently, and especially lead with value. When you lead with value, you're going to, because the other side, they know the BS. They can sense it. That's probably what was going on there. They knew what all these other agents, they were all saying the same thing, doing the same thing. But then here's this outlier. I don't know. Something's different.
A lot different.
Something different. This thing could go one way, it could go another way, but they had a good feeling about you.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
It worked out.
It did. It did work out. And, I think back to, I was in the corporate world previous to being in real estate. And one of the things that I always asked any potential client or anybody that I worked with, and this can apply to any single industry, it can apply to real estate, it can apply to staffing, it can apply to healthcare, is in that process, I would always ask the person, what specifically is important to you in this process? Apply to XYZ. And you get them talking and to open up. And it's different for everybody. And that's so standard. But then it helps tailor kind of the system. And that's what I did with that portfolio of 16. And I'm not sure that they were asked that. And so they just started talking and telling me everything that was important to them and the reasons why. And I just tailored the process to it. And I think that, regardless of what industry you're in, whether it's real estate, any other industry, that's what you do. And you're solving problems, you're helping people, you're providing value, just like you said.
And it's funny is that what would probably happen there is the other agents, they were just selling themselves, when what you just said is, really uncovering the problem. So you don't even know what problem you got to solve for. And this should be sales 101. You took that approach to really understand what do they even need? Love it. Love it.
You've heard about spin selling. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about spin selling, correct? SPIN. So any situation that you go into, whether you're dealing with, real estate, homeowners, spin, it stands for, first of all, you want to find out what the situation is. You just want a general, lay of the land. What is the situation? Asking questions, finding that out. Then you want to understand what their problem is. Okay. So now you've uncovered what their problem is and why they're having a conversation with you and why you're in front of them. Then you want to understand and point out what the implication would be if they were not to move forward with a solution or a decision that you're going to present at some point in time. And then the N in SPIN stands for needs payoff. And that's when you present the solution to them. And so you've already gone through this. You understand the situation. You understand the problem. You made it very clear to them, and they're very clear what the implication is going to be if they do not move forward today, tomorrow, solve this problem. And then you kind of put that spin on it with the needs payoff, where they're feeling kind of like, oh my gosh, I need this. I need to move forward. This is solving my problems. How could I not move forward? And I approach every situation with the spin selling.
Interesting. So I've never had any formal sales training. It's always been on the go. In college, it was direct selling vitamins. And then I did some MLM things, and then inside sales with cruises, and then real estate. But I'm always learning things, reading books and stuff. But that same approach is exactly what we did with homeowners. And it's phenomenal. One of the best questions I always like to ask, and especially if we were at a gap between my price and their price, it was just like, what are you going to do if you don't get your price?
That's the implication. There you go.
So they may not know. And that may be a scary question for them to think about, but it is something they need to think about.
And that's what takes them through. What is the implication if I don't sell or, get the price that I want, or we don't come to an agreement? What's going to happen? Am I going to go into foreclosure? Am I going to be able to pay, for health related bills, things of that nature? That's exactly what it is. So a lot of people do it. That's just kind of the formal side of the training for spin.
Love it. Love it. So for someone that's sitting today and they're facing some setbacks, some challenges, they're in a rut, like, what's your advice for them to go from stuck to stable, and then from stable to growing?
Yeah. Again, I'm going to be transparent. And this was recent past. 4 out of those 5 major things all happened at one time, a lot of loss. And I think the biggest thing that happened for me is I was battling cancer. And at first it wasn't It wasn't, it was skin cancer. They couldn't understand why there were multiple types of skin cancer. And I was going through multiple surgeries, chunks of my head, stitches, things of that nature. I'm like, I can deal with this. Like people go through so much worse, on top of dealing with all the other things. But then came, and this is very in the moment. There are very, very few people that know about this. But, when I speak and, share my journey, I'm very authentic about in the moment what happens. But I went through about 2 weeks where they were rushing me into the hospital and doing all types of procedures. And they thought very clearly that between stage 3 and stage 4 melanoma, very aggressive cancer. And I had one of what they thought was the rarest ones that had a 5 to 25% life expectancy for the first 5 years. So all of this is happening as I'm moving, as I'm having a career change. I did have a relationship end. I'm working with my kids, and then I'm having these massive health issues, wondering, am I going to be able to get back up and support my family? And how do I continue forward with the businesses that I have? And I went for 2 weeks. The doctor said, you need to make arrangements quick. You need to make arrangements. And that was after all the surgeries, and I was waiting for answers. And I just prayed. I'm sorry if all of you don't believe, but I prayed. A lot of people prayed. And the doctor came back to me and she said, I don't know if you believe in miracles. She goes, but I've been doing this for a long time. And she said, there's no reason with what we found that the tests should be or what they are. She goes, this is a miracle. And I got the news that I'm good. No stage 3 or 4 melanoma. And to live like that for 2 weeks, thinking, I just shut down. I shut down. I took my kids on trips and just made memories. And to live that way for 2 weeks while you're going through all these other things, it turns you into a different person. And you treasure life and you treasure what you're going through. And then you have a whole new appreciation. But then you're physically exhausted. You're mentally exhausted. But you have so much more in your heart and what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. And I look back at where I've been, those $2.56 moments with maxed out credit cards, not knowing how I was going to get to the next day and provide for my kids, and all the growth and the things that I've gone through and acquired. And I've taken, risk. And again, I don't recommend anybody do that. That was the fit for me. And I'm so proud of myself. But when you mentioned that today was going to be about from setbacks to success, I had to stop and think about it. A lot of people equate success with just financial gains. I don't equate it to just financial gains anymore. I equate it to full balance in life. Yes, you want the career, you want financial success, you want the family, you want, all those things and the relationships that are important to you, but it's the memories, and you have to come back from that. And so my success at this point moving forward is balance. And that's financially, that's with career, that's with family, that's with friends, all the important things in life that at some point in time, if you're just 100% focused on career, you're going to lose sight of all that. So to me, success is the balance and achieving that in all areas of life.
Love it. Love it. Such a role model too for your kids. I don't know how old they were at the time, but they'll definitely be able to reflect on that and tell those stories to their kids, and amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
So, what's next on their career path? Are you taking on bigger deals?
I'm gearing up. I'm a big believer that sometimes you're on paths that God completely destroys, and you don't understand it in the moment. But it's because if you stayed on that path, it's going to continue to destroy you. And so I'm at a point now where it's like I'm looking at all these things, and I feel so grateful and appreciative, and beautiful kids. I have 10-year-old twins, by the way, that no longer want to hang out with mom. I'm not as cool as I used to be. I did take them on a little outing recently, and the first thing my son said is, "Mommy, don't embarrass me." And I'm like, "What? I'm the cool mom. Are you kidding me?" But so I'm looking at all those things, and my path moving forward career-wise is to focus on the portfolio deals on the realtor side, and then also to acquire more multifamily and storage units. And that in itself is a story, about trials and tribulations. So you go through kind of, the single family rehab, getting your realtor's license. And when I acquired, my first multifamily, it was an 11 unit, and then I acquired another 69 unit. And to make a very long story short, part of what happened is that I had a third-party property management company. That property, you go in, you do your analysis, you acquire, you rehab, you want to get a great tenant base in there. But that property was running the third-party property management company instead of the other way around. There was also theft going on. A lot of this tenant base, they paid in cash and or money orders that they didn't make it out to the property name. So guess what was mysteriously disappearing? And I'm looking at things from an asset management perspective and the financials, and I understand that this is not in line with my underwriting and something is going on because I knew my numbers. I did my due diligence. And so I 100% fired everybody overnight and took over everything, property management, outsourcing to maintenance. I was going to turn this property around. And I tell the stories that some people don't, and I probably won't tell you the level 10. I'll probably tell you level 5 or 6. But for the last 3 years of my life, there were nights that I was out there at 2 o'clock in the morning walking with a protection dog. It was a property full of, prostitution, gangs, drug dealers, and I was not going to fail. And there were nights that I said, please, God, get me home to my kids tonight, but I was not going to fail. I was going to turn this around and bring a whole new tenant base in there. And I even had police officers the first time that they met me. They said, you can't be out here by yourself. And I was like, I don't think you understand who I am. I will be out here by myself, and I'm going to be out here quite a bit, and I will turn this around. And so you go through those moments and you're proud of yourself. And I look at the numbers now and what I've done where most people, especially in my role, would have given up. And I won't give up. That's the tenacity that I always grew up with. Maybe part of that is attributed to my dad being a Marine and never backing down and never quitting. But I can't deny who I am. That's who I am, and that's who I'm always going to be. And I'm ready to transition now. And I'm very proud of the work that I've done. And even the police officer, one of the police officers, he said, I haven't been out here in a year. And I go, what do you think I've been doing out here? But to answer your question, Chris, the portfolio deals, a heavy focus on that. Also acquiring more multifamily and storage units.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, I always wrap up with the same 4 questions with every guest. And starting with number 1, if you could give advice to your 20-year-old self, what would that be?
20-year-old self, that was a long time ago. But I think the advice that I would give is, I'm going to take this back to my dad. My dad passed away when I was 16. And this was one of those defining moments, one of those lifelong lessons that I continue to carry with me every single day. And he sat me down, and I still have the piece of paper that I wrote this out on. And he said, if you had unlimited time, talent, money, and support from your friends and family, what is it that you would do with your life? And I went through and I detailed all of that out, everything from friends, family, business. And I was 13 at the time, and he passed when I was 16. And one of the line items that I had on there was to one day own my own company. And back then I didn't know how, I didn't know when, I didn't know what that was going to be. And, when life happened and I found myself, with young twins, not knowing how to provide for my family, the 3 of us, that's the decision. And that was the moment that I decided. I tapped into when I was 13 and I said, I'm going to open my own company. There's no better time right now. Let's take the risk and let's go for it. So have those beliefs and tap into that and let your head dream and go after it all, because I was once told you couldn't have it all. And I truly believe with balance, you can have it all and you can achieve and accomplish things. And it goes back to the mindset and believing in that. And when we have down moments, because we all do, trust me, I went through it recently as well. You tap into who's going to help you, who's going to make you feel better. What books do you need to read? How are you going to get back up? And knowing that you have so much more to offer and we have one life to live.
Love it. What book or books have greatly influenced your life?
Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways by Susan Jeffers. I will always go back to that. That talks about, despite the fear that you feel inside, you got to take a risk. You got to go for it. And a lot of times when you have more of a perfectionist personality or, you work really, really hard, you're scared to take risks, or you're worried about looking like a failure. And that is one of my, scariest things in my head. But I continue to push myself, and I'll read that book. Even when I get into slumps now, I'll reread that book because it does something to me, and it unlocks something that I need to say, you know what? I have nothing to lose. And I've proven to myself so many times, doesn't mean I'm not going to fail, doesn't mean I'm not going to fall on my face, but I've proven to myself so many times that when you take that risk, even when everybody's telling you, no, you can't do it, you shouldn't do this, you can come out ahead. And if you don't, you may not always win, but you're never going to lose. And the reason why is because you're always going to get back up, and you're going to apply that knowledge into the next endeavor. And the bracelet that I wear, that was another saying from my dad. And he mentioned when I was young, he said, what does this mean to you? I may not always win, but I will never lose. And I was very young at the time, and I had to ponder. And I said, you know what, Dad? I said, what that means to me is that maybe you don't win the first time right out of the gate. Maybe you don't knock it out of the park, but you learn and you get back up. And so maybe you don't win the first time, but you're never going to lose, because you're always going to get back up, and you're going to go after it, and you're going to get to that finish line.
Love it. Love it. In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Ooh, that's a good one. Focusing on the strengths and weaknesses. I would say the number one thing that makes me strong and is my number one strength is also my greatest weakness. That's a cliche saying that goes for a lot of people. And that's where I've really learned to adapt, where I love to achieve, I love success, but I realize that I don't want to define myself based on my achievement. I want to value myself as a person, care about myself as a person, regardless of any achievement. Is achievement good and nice? Absolutely. But that doesn't make me who I am. I feel the same about myself regardless of achievement. That's what I've learned.
How can people reach out to you?
Well, there's a couple of different ways. I'm not the best on social media, but I do have Facebook. It's under Elissa Stone, also Instagram. And then I have a couple of different entities and companies, but the one that you can look up is the Phoenix Factor Group. And, I would love to have conversations with each of you, anything that I can learn from you and vice versa. It's really, truly about events like this and like-minded people, because I've learned so much from you, Chris, even recently on all the AI stuff, because that's one of my greatest weaknesses is the processes, and that's so important in business. And I just, it's about inspiring each other and learning from each other and growing together.
All right. Questions. Who's got a question for Elissa? Who's got a question?
Great. Thanks. Appreciate the conversation today. I just put in an offer for a portfolio deal today. So I'm a big fan of portfolio deals.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
Congrats.
are your the portfolios that you do, are they only in Texas, or are you national?
I'm only in Texas right now. So right now I'm working on probably about 150 homes over 3 different deals. One of them is in Corpus Christi, a portfolio of 29. There's also a portfolio of 44 and a portfolio of 42. And I was working on a portfolio of 12. Unfortunately, that one fell out of contract. It happens. There was about a $600,000 spread. But yes, primarily Texas.
And on the portfolios that you deal with, they're fairly large and kind of out of my range. Do they ever break those up at all, or do you ever work with smaller portfolios?
Yes, I would encourage anybody who would potentially do a portfolio deal, big or small, follow me. And the reason why is the portfolio of 44, originally it started out just as that. They wanted to sell it in one deal. And eventually, sometimes they break it down. So they were working on a refinance. The refinance has not gone through. And so some of them were free and clear, and they're willing to sell them off individually. And then some of them are also selling off as packages of 4 or 5. So absolutely, it changes. Usually it starts out with, let's sell one portfolio deal, all the homes in one package. And then they start breaking it down dependent upon the financing and if everything's paid off. So absolutely, please connect with me, because you'll want these deals.
How do we go about selling? Just come to you, or
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
5 or 6
Contact me.
Just contact you. That's it.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna share my process.
How big or small?
I'm open. My smallest one, I've done, 4 units up to my largest package in one transaction was 91 different homes. And so my process is a little bit different. And I'm going to advertise this, and anybody can take a page from my book. Maybe they like it, maybe they don't. all of those portfolio deals that I did, the over 175 single family homes in 3 transactions in 1 year, none of those were exclusive as an agent. I didn't have the listing. And there were a lot of agents that wouldn't work those because they thought it was a waste of their time. I had a different mindset. Well, nobody else is working them. I have nothing to lose. What if I did close them? Do you know how much money that is? Well, I'm going to work them. I have nothing to lose. The 91, it was a random lead on Facebook that I chased down. So my point is, I see the possibility in everything. I don't do things the way other people do because that's how you get the results that other people get. I want different results. So to answer your question, I've worked portfolio deals where I do not have the listing. And I talk to the owners and I'm like, you know what? I understand how valuable time is. Just send me the addresses. Let me bring you offers. And guess what? When I put 2 to 3 offers on the table, all of a sudden I have your attention and we start negotiating. And then if we can agree upon something, then we execute the paperwork. And then I also do portfolio deals where I do have the exclusive listing because obviously I'm going to be 100% dedicated and focused on that too. So yes, reach out to me. I'll help you out. Valuation, there's multiple different ways. So with portfolio deals, you're not going to get what you would sell for retail, right? There is a commodity and the reason why you're doing a portfolio transaction. Typically, it's anywhere from 70 to 80% of the market value. What I like to do with a lot of owners is let's not talk about that, right? Let me see the actual addresses. Let me audit it. Let me get in front of some of my contacts, anything from, personal buyers, institutional buyers, multiple investors doing JVs. Let's let the market talk to you. So for example, if I bring you 3 different offers on your portfolio deal and each one is about $100,000 apart, that's the market talking to you on what you can get at that point in time. At that point in time, you can say, yes, I would love to negotiate and accept. And we kind of do that, that whole negotiation process. Or you say, you know what, it's not worth it for me to sell. The market's talking to me. I'm seeing the proof in the pudding. I'm going to hang on to these. And that's always a good educational process for the owner starting out. And kind of it helps bridge that gap between seller and then buyer as well.
Anyone else?
When you bought those 69 units, the ones that you were said was a nightmare.
What
were you thinking?
Those were multifamily. Yes. Well, you look at everything you learn. Okay. So I drove the property. I had an 11 unit close by. I wanted to acquire more multifamily. And this was also a storage unit, a combination deal 9 minutes away. So I'm clustering. I'm going to use the same maintenance professional. I'm going to use the same third-party property management and continue to grow. This property, amazing, right? You drive it. It needs to be rehabbed. Obviously we can turn the tenant base a little bit, increase the valuation of the property. It was what you read in a textbook. It was quiet during the day. Want to know the biggest thing I learned? Don't purchase multifamily unless you walk it at 2:00 in the morning. Now, would I have still bought the property? Yes, but I would have been a little bit more educated on all the shenanigans that went on and, everything that I went through for the past 3 years. And when I share information, I bought a $25,000 protection dog, if that tells you anything. But it's a much different property today than it was 3 years ago. Had I not done what I done, the property would have gone into foreclosure. Had I not executed and took over 100% of everything and went in hills blazing, I would not be sitting here today with that property. And so I'm a believer in what I did. Not many people would have probably put themselves in their situations that I did, but that's who I am. And I'm sure that's probably what contributed to some of the health issues. But we're turning a corner there. And I'm very proud of what I've done. And it's an amazing property now. And I get referrals all day long of investors wanting to purchase. I'm like, nope, I put in too much work right now.
Love it, love it. All right, let's close on that note. Everyone give Elissa a hand. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being on the
Thank
show.
you for all the value.